The best Star Wars ripoff since Spaceballs.
Oh, no.
Kang is Palpatine. MODOK is Darth Vader. Ant-Man is Han. Practically every character plays one or more stand-ins of the Star Wars characters.
So a hero's journey. Got it.
Right.
They even rip off the cantina scene. It took the MCU for Disney to give us a decent Star Wars movie.
Oh, no.
What?
Oh.
Wait, does this person like it or not?
Yeah.
That is a 1-star review from IMDb.
I'm so confused.
Hello, and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm Steven, joined as always by Andrew.
Hello.
And Ryan.
Hello.
And that is going on the soundboard. Get ready for our own personal hell.
Someone deleted it. I don't know what happened. It's weird.
It just went away.
just
Weird
not
how that
happening
worked
anymore.
out.
Listen to the episode, and it's like, Andrew, nothing. Oh, okay, well.
It's just
silence.
It's just flat. So if you didn't get the message from our 1-star review, we're talking Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Oh, is it Ant-Man and the Wasp?
That is the full title.
Okay.
It is henceforth known as Ant-Man 3.
You wouldn't think it, but that's what the actual title is.
Yeah. It will be known as Ant-Man 3 from now on, because I'm not saying all that.
Or just A3
Every
for
time?
short.
No, we
No,
can't go that
we
far.
can't go that
Ant-Man
short.
3's fine.
What about AM3? Can we compromise?
AM3, absolutely not.
3-man ant. We're just doing it
Can we-
Yoda
no,
style.
Can we
It's
not?
Star Wars.
No. Ooh, that's a callback already.
Wow.
But before we get into Ant-Man and Wasps,
And Quantumania.
not Quantumania, we thought we're going to end up with possibly the most educational content on this show.
That's
Doubtful.
a very bold statement.
It's a very low bar, all right, very low threshold here. We were going to talk about some bugs,
Get
our
out your
favorite
pens and
bugs,
papers.
just break out some bug
not
facts.
pop culture bugs, just bugs.
Just bugs. We thought about pop culture bugs, but you can only say Mothra so many times.
or Zorak.
Or tick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So without further ado, to share us some interesting facts about a bug he may or may not like, Ryan, you're on the spot.
That's so mean.
I'm going to give this bug a shout out. Okay, these bugs annoy me. I don't fully hate them, but ever since I moved away from Tennessee, I have never seen them. So they're very
Okay.
like, I have nostalgia for them now, like decades later.
You're,
where
you're
I'm
like, oh, they were cool.
I
man.
miss those bugs.
I kind of do. It's called the camelback cricket.
Oh, those are still those are in Alabama.
Not where I've lived.
Okay.
Are those like the really big crickets?
Yeah, the big
They-
brown
the
ones.
big-
They have
yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
weird back on them.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
So
yeah.
it's, for those at home, just Google camelback cricket.
Yeah.
So growing up, we used to live in my grandmother's house for a while on the lake, and they just like would
Oh, they're
come
everywhere, right?
Everywhere. And so I lived in the basement. That's where my bedroom was.
And they always come in
And
the
just-
basement.
Steady. Every day you saw at least one or two just there. And we would have all sorts of spray, poisons. They were just like drinking it up like it was like an amuse-bouche before they were going to eat their
Yeah.
food. You know, they're like, whatever. Thanks for the raid. We put out glue traps. They would get out of them. Sometimes I think there were so many of them, they would just crawl over the bodies of other ones.
Like zombies.
Oh, wow.
The one night,
World War Z.
I want to tell this. So yeah, the facts about this bug, oftentimes called an unknown cricket of uncertain species.
Okay.
So,
What?
no one's like I don't know. It's a cricket.
They just don't care enough to research to determine where it belongs.
Commonly called the jumping weta, the cave weta, cave crickets, camelback crickets, camel cricket, Hogan's bugs, and spider crickets.
So I've only heard them referred to as camel crickets. That's it.
Same. And apparently some people call them criders or sprickets, which I was like,
What?
that feels weird. Because I guess like a mix between a spider and a cricket, but that's not
But it's not a spider. It's a
accurate
cricket.
at all. Yeah. They have very large hind legs. They're very stick shaped. They have like the big.
They got some big legs.
It's like a grasshopper.
Yeah.
And they can hop, but they don't really like jump high. They just like spring forward. But there was one night, I think I was in high school, maybe early college, blurs together.
Yeah.
But like I got up in the middle of the night and I can't remember what for, like used the bathroom or something. And my closet light was on.
Mhm.
So I had left it on, I guess, before I went to bed. And I went and opened the
It
closet.
all like congregated
In
under
the floor,
Yeah.
it was a semicircle of about 7 of them facing inward. And I
Worshipping
was
the
like,
light.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, they're summoning the
Oh.
cricket
It
demon.
felt like
the
I
light.
interrupted a meeting or like an AA thing for like camelback crickets. And I was like, what is this? And then they all hopped away, you know.
Well, see,
Boing,
that's,
boing, boing,
that's
boing,
when you slowly close the door. You're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, excuse me.
and then I had this like, am I dreaming or did that happen? And then I opened the closet again and they're just bang, 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 bouncing around like a pinball machine in there. And I was like, okay, they were there.
This is normal for crickets.
But
here.
what they were doing, there was nothing in the middle of it that I could see. I guess the sacrifice had already happened. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyways, camelback crickets. That's my bug.
All right, not a ton of facts, but something out there.
There's not a lot known about there of uncertain species.
That's so weird. All right,
I mean, I
Andrew.
could get into the genus and the
No,
subfamilies.
we don't need to get into that.
Yeah, like, you know.
All right, so I am going to stay a little bit on brand here. I'm going to go with a red paper wasp, which is...
Why would you choose? Oh, man.
No, okay, no. I have a story, but then
Okay,
I'll get to
all
the
right.
story here in a second.
Yeah.
So they are basically only here in South and North America,
Okay.
generally in the East.
Is this what we would
Like
just call a red
southeast.
wasp?
Yeah, it's just a red wasp.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
angry
the
boy.
reason why they call them paper wasps is because they make their nests out of like basically like pulp and
looks
and,
very
like, different,
It looks very
yeah.
paper-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are one of the wasps that do not prey on spiders.
Okay.
So they prey.
So
what
they have
use
no
are
function in
they?
society.
Yeah,
other
what
than to
use
sting
are
you.
they?
Yeah,
That's
they
it.
kill
Okay.
cicadas and caterpillars.
Most
And they're
boring wasp.
generally not aggressive unless you are near their nest.
I've had a couple of red wasps just be like in the summer, be like, "Oh, your car window's open. We'll just come pay you a visit."
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
no.
well, that's the thing is like, so last summer, I was stung by one. First time I've ever actually been stung by a bee or wasp or
Wow,
anything
really?
in my
Wow.
life. And I used to live on a farm.
That's crazy.
That's actually, you got good numbers.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
a really good run there,
Good
like
run.
35 years.
Yeah.
But so I was walking down the stairs, and apparently they decided that they wanted to make a nest under the stairs.
Right.
And so they were very upset about that.
Sure.
And I got stung twice on my arm. And, growing up 35 years of not being stung, I'm like, I don't know what it feels like.
Right.
I found out real fast.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as bad as I expected it to be.
Mm.
But, man, I killed them with a vengeance very quickly
sure.
afterwards.
I've found too that it depends on where they sting you too, with
Yeah.
how much it hurts. Like I got
Yeah, mine was like right in the meat of the arm.
I got hit right in that middle part between your thumb and your finger
Ooh.
before. That
Ooh,
really
yeah.
tender.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was not pleasant.
That's soft tissue right there.
So apparently my friend Brad, who is also a listener, thank you for listening, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
He's a patron.
He is a patron. Thank you, Brad.
Thanks for your money,
for
Brad.
support. We love
apparently
and cherish all our patrons.
He was going to his computer one day and put his hand on his mouse, and there was a red wasp on his mouse,
What?
and then stung him
dang.
in his palm.
The
like,
wasp was
multiple
like,
times.
"Bro, I'm trying to play Call of Duty here. What's going on?"
So at work, my window is very old, and at the top of it, it'll like slide down, and wasps build nests outside. And I got
Oh,
stung
man.
at work because it crawled up my pant leg.
Ooh,
Yeah, and it got me right on the back of the like the calf,
yeah.
and I couldn't get it out of my pant leg,
So
and I
it's
was
like,
like, freaking out. And everyone at work laughed, and I was like, "What if I had been allergic? You guys have been cackling over my dead
put in
corpse."
like a OSHA claim on that.
So
Fun fact about wasps: Lauren's old apartment, she used to have an issue with the sliding glass door that didn't close well, and the wasp
Yeah.
would crawl in under it. And so while we were recording the Barons cast one time, I got a phone call.
oh, I remember this.
because she had a panic attack because there's one in there. So I had to drive, 4 miles down 280, which is
Yeah.
not pleasant, to basically kill a wasp and then come back so we can go back to recording the show.
One of the other things that I found interesting about the wasps
Mhm.
is so for the red wasp, only the females can sting, and they can obviously sting multiple times because they're a wasp.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, only the females do it.
What do the males do?
I don't know.
They just hang out.
They're just lazy.
Hang out, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, so, because, we live in the South. They're everywhere all the time.
everywhere.
They just exist.
yeah,
And, like, most of the time, like, if I see one, I give it its space. But, knowing that they don't kill spiders.
yeah, it makes them
is-
even more useless.
Yeah, I'm like, why are you here? What are you
I
doing?
always had this
What
thought
would
in
you
my
say
head of like,
your
well, at least they're
job
killing
is?
spiders.
Yeah.
No, they still may attack spiders, but I know that they don't feed on them, which is, that's the classification there is kind of
Yeah.
what it is. So, Stephen, what is your bug?
Well, so I embraced my inner hippie And I chose
roly-poly?
No,
Oh.
I chose dragonflies.
Oh, dragonflies are cool.
Yeah, I love dragonflies.
What's hippie about the roly-poly?
Yeah, I don't know. I was wondering that
He's just
myself.
hanging around.
Yeah,
just
man.
yeah.
It's being a roly-poly, dude.
rolling down the hill, man.
Well, I was more thinking of like, the tattoos that people get. It'll be a butterfly and then dragonfly is like number 2, right?
Have you guys ever seen anybody with a roly-poly tattoo?
I was gonna say, I mean,
I can't say I have.
Any listener with a roly-poly tattoo, hit us up on
Yeah, let me know.
social.
Send me a photo. So I didn't realize we were going to get into like personal stories about these bugs. But I mean,
do you have a personal
not
story about
really.
dragonflies?
I mean, dragonflies are just awesome, right?
Could you write a haiku really
you
quick
see
about
it-
a
no,
dragonfly?
get outta
maybe,
here.
or
Go
is there
away.
anything? Okay.
But like you see them, around here, any body of water.
Yeah.
There's just a whole mess of dragonflies zipping around.
Yeah.
But they're really, really cool. And the way they
I
fly,
think they're kind of creepy.
well, they're very robot-like in the way they move and hover because they'll
Yeah.
just stop suddenly and then go up and down. And so they can fly.
Because they're ornithopters. They
yes,
just
they can
Yeah,
fly.
like the choppers in Dune. Or whatever.
They are. Yeah, they can fly in every direction, including upside down.
That's cool. I
That's
didn't know
impressive.
So
they
they
could
can go
upside down.
backwards.
I guess
up,
because they
down.
have the 2 wings
Mhm.
or the 4 wings, so they can like basically create their own hover, like their Harrier jump jet. It's fine.
Gravity means nothing to me.
Yeah, so apparently the wings attach directly to the muscle. So
Okay.
it's just like borderline, I guess, exposed muscle right there on their back where the wings connect. I
Pretty
don't know.
metal.
That is pretty metal.
Pretty crazy. So speaking of pretty metal, so Lion, King of the Jungle, right?
Mhm.
Successful in 1 of 5 hunts.
Okay. Yeah.
Dragonfly is successful in 9 of 10.
Oh wow.
Got 'em.
So they base 90% of the time.
What do they feed on?
They feed
Worms?
on-
Children's fears.
I mean, if a dragonfly comes straight at you, it is pretty terrifying.
It is pretty scary.
Although they don't really bite, they don't sting, but they
but they do
feed
contain the most poison of any animal on Earth.
venom.
Yes, venom.
Flies,
No, just poison. They have like chemicals.
they go home. The little alchemy set. Flies and mosquitoes is what they predominantly feed on, as well
Okay.
as basically any other insect they can catch.
Oh wow.
So basically, if I can catch you, I eat you.
I need to get some dragonflies near my house.
So the kind of reminds me a little bit of like praying mantis.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because they like
got the
you
bug
actually don't really
eyes.
see you don't really see them a lot down here.
Mm.
Like I'll probably catch one every couple years, maybe. Well, not catch it, but like
See one.
see one.
Yeah.
See a prey because they're always around. You know they're around. You just
Yeah.
don't see them.
And they're really creepy.
Yeah, well, they're
Yeah.
also really fast. But so dragonflies are also one of the first insects to evolve, the first winged insects to evolve, almost 300 million years ago.
Oh wow. So they're
Whoa.
dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean they were.
They're
There are
OG.
fossils of them that have 2-foot wingspan. So
They-
can you imagine?
2-foot wingspan?
Could you imagine that going along? Just
Yeah,
swing by,
Man.
steal a small dog.
that's crazy.
Is that what dogs sound like when they're being attacked by dragonflies?
I don't know if that's the that might be the dragonfly making that
I was,
noise.
I
actually.
was picturing the dragonfly. Yeah, I gotcha. He just takes off.
All right. Well, after that fun little interlude about bugs,
Nobody picked ants.
nobody picked ants. There's a reason for
I
that.
picked wasp. I was at least semi-topical.
You're almost on brand.
Yeah.
Kind of on brand.
I mean, it is on brand. It's in the name.
I will say, man, reading through the 1-star reviews, there are a lot of people mad about the idea that it's not just an Ant-Man movie
And it's Antman and
and
the Wasp.
Yeah.
She's barely even in the film.
I was gonna say I'm
See,
mad because
that's-
she wasn't in more of it.
See, that's what I thought was so weird is people were complaining about, oh, well, she always steals the spotlight from her. I was like, does she really?
Does
though?
she?
She was like barely in
Did
the
we
film.
watch the same movie?
I mean, she definitely had like parts,
Sure,
but like
we'll get into it in
Well,
spoilers.
yeah,
but
let's jump
Yeah.
right in here. We're gonna kick
Yeah.
this off with a summary. This has a lot of names in it. So Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne, along with Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, explore the quantum realm where they interact with strange creatures and embark on an adventure that goes beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. That is the least give anything away summary I have found.
Yeah.
it's a very generic.
that's we have a story description at home.
Yeah.
like, version of like
So this was directed by Peyton Reed, who is known for directing such films as Ant-Man, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and fan favorite Bring It On.
Oh wow, with
Didn't he
Kirsten
do-
Dunst.
Right? What a random! I was just scrolling through. I was like, "Whoa, that's unexpected in there."
Did he do 27 Dresses? He did like some rom-coms
I don't know.
for a while.
You got the internet
I'll-
right there. You can look it
I'll
up.
look
He
it
has
up.
it in the palm of his hand.
Yes.
Now I
So
do.
the score is by, and I'm gonna mess this up because I'm gonna pronounce it one way and it's probably the other way. but Christoph Beck.
Beck.
I don't care about the last name. It's
No.
the first name I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
So he has done so many recognizable things like Hawkeye, the television show,
Okay.
WandaVision, the television show.
The music in WandaVision was
WandaVision
good.
was good.
Yeah.
Free Guy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't
the music
remember.
from
I don't
it,
remember
but-
the music. He
Yeah.
also did Antman and the Wasp
Okay.
and
Okay.
Frozen 2.
Yeah,
like,
what a pull.
So he underscored Frozen 2 because clearly, like,
obviously
he didn't do like
big
the
thing is
musical
the
numbers.
Musical
Yeah.
numbers, yeah. So budget for this was $200 million.
Wow, that is really high.
That is quite a bit
It
of
is
money.
a lot of VFX in this film.
Yeah.
There definitely are VFX in this film.
There
That is correct.
Are a lot. Box office so far, as of recording, so this is after the first opening weekend.
Yeah.
Is $257 million globally.
Okay, so it's kind of not made its money back yet.
It's not there.
Yeah, it's
But-
made its budget back.
It's off to a good start.
Yeah.
Which you gotta start well to go anywhere, right? Yeah, that's the hope, the dream.
Yeah.
I was trying to pull up real quick, but of course, no one else is here to talk. Andrew, give me some general thoughts. What you think about the movie?
I got some of Peyton Reed's back movies if we want any of
Oh,
that.
go, yeah, fill us in. Give me some.
Yeah, so it was he did Yes Man with Jim Carrey,
Okay.
The Breakup with Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston, Down with Love with like Renee Zellweger. And
So a
someone
lot of
else.
rom-coms.
Not a ton, like a few of them. Bring It On, obviously. So
Bring It On wasn't a rom-com though.
no, but like, well, I was
Yeah,
just mentioning.
I
That's
would
the
not
other,
call that a
other than that,
rom-com.
it's TV.
Yeah,
after
yeah,
that. It's
gotcha.
pretty much like TV shows.
So I mean, I thought this film was fine. With a capital F.
Wow. So
like
for perspective,
FU or like a
so for perspective, domestically,
Mhm.
it made over 120 million.
Uh-huh.
The first Ant-Man opening weekend was 57 million,
Mhm.
and then the second Ant-Man was 75 million.
And
So we have moved up. That's just
Yeah.
domestic.
yeah. And like, it's definitely one of those things where Ant-Man, I'll say, is like I don't know anything about comics, so this is just complete conjecture and
Yeah.
probably terribly wrong. But he seems like a C-lister.
Brian, correct him.
Okay, kind of, but
Yeah.
not like Ant-Man is one of those characters. He's just like Thor and Iron Man, honestly. Like back in the 60s, they were the thing.
Yeah.
70s, they kind of waned a little bit.
Yeah.
80s, people weren't
Well-
reading Ant-Man
well,
that
once,
much.
Once like
once the
late
X-Men and
70s,
Spider-Man and
Yeah.
like, that was your like prime boys in like
Yeah.
the 90s,
Gotcha.
and then like there's been again
A
with-
resurgence.
once Disney bought, Marvel and they didn't have the rights to the X-Men movies, or really before Disney, like when Marvel Studios became a thing
Yeah.
and they had the rights to, Iron Man
Yeah.
and Thor, they were
Mhm.
like, these are the movies we're going to do. Now their comic books are popping off and people are,
Yeah.
reading
because they're
them a
the
lot more.
best known characters again.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a shift. But Ant-Man, to my knowledge, to me and the people that I hang out with that read comics, was never been like, man, I love some Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Ant-Man always like showed up in stuff
Well,
I
he's
read.
just kind of like a weird hero.
Yeah. He was
Like-
never like, I never read an Ant-Man comic. It would just
Yeah.
be, he would be in an Avengers
Just be
issue.
in
yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Avengers. He has one of those abilities that isn't. It doesn't just work in all situations.
Yeah, but in the situations it does work in, it's very,
It's
very good.
perfect,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
there's never a moment where you're just like, man, if only we had someone around who could get really small.
Well, and I could be wrong again, because I'm admittedly pretty ignorant on Ant-Man himself, but I don't think his characterization in the comics originally was like as funny as Paul Rudd's
Oh,
portrayal
really?
is.
He's like the
Oh, this is-
dark,
it's-
gritty.
Yeah.
the
The
dark, gritty ant.
grittier.
But like, I know there was like the Ultimates run that happened in the early aughts where they
Couldn't,
remixed
like,
a bunch of stuff.
Original Ant-Man, like one of his actual core abilities was talking to ants.
Yes.
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
like antennas on his.
yeah. I do know
his-
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think this
So
film.
he's kind of like the Aquaman.
Well, it
of
was very
Marvel.
much in the 60s, when they were coming up with powers for people. It was like, yeah, Aquaman could talk to fish, and like that's how they get out of hijinks.
he
You
can
know?
talk
So
to ants.
Ant-Man
ev-
can talk to
every-
ants. And
Every storyline revolves around something that can be solved by ants.
well, and admittedly, ants could probably do pretty good recon for you. Sneak in somewhere,
think- no,
tell you what's
if
going
you throw
on.
enough
Yeah.
ants at a problem, you can solve a lot of problems.
that is true. Like
Put that
there-
on a t-shirt.
so there I can't remember. It was like some B movie from like the 50s or 60s
Mhm.
where like these people go on like some expedition in Africa, and then they're basically running away from like killer fire ants for like the whole film,
Yeah.
and like
What?
they'll like go over
I
the
vaguely
person and then
remember
like
this.
eat the person as they're going over it, and
Oh
then,
yeah,
like,
it's like
it
a
leaves,
moving,
like,
a moving carpet.
yeah, and it like leaves
Yeah.
like a dead husk of a person.
There's just like a skeleton behind or whatever.
Yeah, that's just what I think of whenever I think of like lots of ants solving a problem.
I mean,
It's just devouring a
carpet
person
of
in
death.
seconds.
they're like piranhas of the land.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. But going to back to A3
Oh god.
or
No,
three-man
No,
ant.
no, stop.
Three-man
Is it a
ant.
band now?
Oh man, TM, get that one written down and copyrighted. 3-man ant.
But yeah, the film is fine. I think that there is a lot of basically all of my problems that come with like the story and kind of like the things that happen in the film are basically all problems that have already existed and that will continue to exist
They're just
in the
Marvel
Marvel in the
problems.
MCU.
Yeah.
I disagree highly with that statement. I think, well, okay.
Give us some
Just-
thoughts,
just-
Ryan.
just
Give
to
us some thoughts, Ryan.
So thoughts generally, I did not care for this movie. It was not bad. It was just aggressively fine and
Like,
average
so I said capital F.
in every way. Yeah, it was very like, yeah. But like to me, like there is so many things missing from this that I missed from Marvel movies that they didn't have in here. That I was like, what are y'all doing? It's like the formula, but it's almost like somebody's copying someone's homework. Is what it felt like to me.
Well, it's the telephone version of the formula. Once you
Right,
get
yeah.
far enough down the line, the formula isn't the same. It's
Yeah.
new Coke now instead of classic
right.
Coke.
And so it's like I feel like just saying that like it's the same problem that all Marvel movies have is a little too reductive.
I tend
think
to
it's
agree
like,
with Andrew more than you right now.
well, but that would be like me being like, Cowboy Bebop and Dragon Ball Z and Bocchi the Rock. It's just people screaming. Anime's weird. It's like, no, there's definitely Marvel films that like do different stuff and go places that this movie did not go. This movie played it very safe, and even the humor didn't hit like some stuff like the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie or
so I was going to say, I feel like when the first Guardians hit,
yeah.
that was kind of the moment where a lot of what I would call the Marvel formula crystallized, because they were like, we can pitch anything
Yeah.
so long as we follow this formula and it's going to work.
They
So
learned the wrong lessons from it, I think is the problem with
A
the
bit.
Guardians.
Well,
yeah.
so the problem with that is, and we kind of had this this conversation in our Andor episode
Mhm.
when we were reviewing it, is whenever you have like, so I'll say Guardians was kind of like that crystallization
It's a,
of
it's
the
a
formula.
watershed moment.
And people like genuinely recepted it because it was funny. It had some good action in it.
It
Yeah.
worked because it was a very different cast of characters.
It was.
And it was a very different, just the way that they hit story beats.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is great when it's different.
The problem with that is that whenever you try and recreate that,
Yeah.
you can't get that initial reaction back because everyone already knows what's coming.
Right. It turns into more of a commodity than something that's special, basically. Well, and that's kind of so back to this movie,
Yeah.
right? To loop it back to 3-Man Ant.
Stop, please.
Yeah.
Yes, it's catching on.
No.
I was like a fugue state. I don't even remember saying
do
it.
not make this a thing.
So, I've never been a huge fan of the Ant-Man movies just because
I liked the first one quite a bit. I thought it was a lot
I'm
of fun.
very salty about the first one specifically.
Oh, wow.
Because
Wow, what?
Edgar Wright wrote a script for Ant-Man and had
He
it
did,
for
yes.
15 years. He had been trying to get it made for
and they
like,
just didn't want it.
well, he'd been sitting on it, or maybe it's like 10 years. I'm
Yeah.
like misquoting here a little bit. A long time.
Some amount of time, yeah.
So he worked with Marvel. They was like, cool, you can do Ant-Man. He's all about it, right?
Yeah.
Does all the pre-production and then starts to get into a fight with studio heads about forcing in certain scenes that basically tie it into the rest of everything else. Specifically, one of them was the scene that the Falcon shows up in it.
Oh.
It was just, remember how it felt like this unnecessary like side scene
Yeah.
of like, what is this? Why are we over here? Like,
Yeah, he very much so wanted it to be a standalone film.
and so the head of Marvel Studios at the time is also the same guy that when they said we should do a Black Widow movie back like before Thor 2,
Uh-huh.
they were like, no.
Which is
Oh,
insane.
he was
So,
that idiot.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was that guy. I can't remember his name. I'll look it up. But like he got rid of Edgar Wright. They brought in Peyton Reed.
yeah.
And then the problem I had with the first Ant-Man is you can see the DNA that happened from Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With, like think of like Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, right? With the like the quippy back
Yeah.
and forth, people
Mhm.
telling stories about things happening, right?
Yeah.
But the execution wasn't there. It was somebody doing an impersonation,
Yeah.
basically,
Right.
of what could have been And what was literally my most looked forward to Marvel movie at the time when Edgar Wright was attached to it.
Well, I mean, Edgar Wright's a fantastic director.
Great director.
So
yeah.
I went from being like way hyped for Ant-Man 1 to being like, I may boycott this film forever. You know, like they got rid of my guy. But instead what happened is we got the Peyton Reed version of Ant-Man that's like fine. Second Ant-Man, I liked it okay. I don't remember a lot about it.
Well, because that came out in between Infinity War and Endgame.
Yes.
And they were like, this is the tie-in. It's like, that's not
But
really.
I remember
kind of exists.
coming out of the theater being like let down that there wasn't more of a tie-in.
Yeah.
Because like after Infinity War, you're so like, I can't wait to see what happens. I need to know something.
Yeah.
Like what's going on. And then you get to Ant-Man 2 and it's like, oh, okay, so you're just telling like your own
a story.
little story here to bring back to Three-Man Ant. I feel like the best Ant-Man stories are the smaller stories.
Yeah.
Not just because he shrinks.
Pun intended.
But because it's more personal, it's more his style of character to me.
It
And
is.
it's like when you get into this big sprawling
like
stuff,
overarching.
I feel like it's too big for just Ant-Man. And like, so with this movie, I feel like
But Ant-Man can also become big.
he can.
Hey-o.
So this movie, I think, was fine. To me, it's like three pieces. There's like the first chunk of the movie, it's like thirds, is one style of movie. The middle section is a different style of movie, and then the end is a hot mess. And I liked each section less as the movie went along, basically.
So one thing, we've kind of dogged it a little bit, and then I'll let Steven talk. But I also like the costume design for everyone that was in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Their super suits or whatever are fine.
But the natives.
Yeah,
of-
like everyone that was like in the quantum universe was fantastic. Like their character designs and everything were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought some of the especially like Kang's suit is very accurate to the
Yeah.
comics, which is always fun when they are able to make something from like the 60s look like cool on screen now and not look cheesy.
Well,
So-
it was funny seeing his face at first because I was like, are those like
Scars?
tear lines? Has he
Right.
been crying? I was like, no, those are permanent.
Jonathan Majors cries a lot in this.
Apparently,
film,
yeah.
all day.
And then like looking
He's
at it, I was
always
like,
crying.
well, this
That's
is
my
kind of
secret.
like what Kang used to look like. And then his helmet closed and it turns blue. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's Kang.
That's Kang, yeah.
So I went into this movie having not seen either of the preceding Ant-Man movies.
Wow.
I was entertained.
Yeah.
I liked it. I'm not here to tell you that it was high quality cinema, but I think coming off of kind of what Thor: Love and Thunder was, where it had a fairly serious topic that was handled very
Poorly.
lightly,
Yeah.
and then you have Black Panther, where you have again a very serious topic which was handled much better.
Yeah.
To this, where the topic in universe, the topic is very serious, but like as a reflection of just real life, it's not like there's nothing about the quantum universe that's particularly serious to me at this moment, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so I felt like they got to be a little lighter with it and have a little more fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe a little too much fun. And we'll get into that in spoilers.
Yeah.
But also, honestly, we got a couple of, actually, I shouldn't even say a lot of pretty good performances from people on screen.
Yeah, I think so.
And I watching the film, I kind of felt bad for them because I can't imagine how much green they stared at.
Did they
Like-
use the volume at all? for
I don't
any of
think they
this?
did.
Okay. There was a couple of shots that looked like they
There
might
may have
have.
been a couple shots that they did.
They may have, but there
Yeah.
are also a lot of like moving and action sequences that look much larger than.
Yeah,
Well, and
for
there are
sure.
definitely some poor green screening
Yeah.
bits here and there. I've seen online that some people are very upset with the visual, like the VFX for the film, which I actually didn't really find any
I don't-
major issues
My,
with.
my
I
major
don't
issue,
understand that complaint either.
So I think the design of like the quantum realm looked really cool.
the art
I
design
thought that was
phenomenal.
cool.
So,
I think it's the CG of one character specifically that I think was absolute
yeah.
trash.
Well, so
Yeah.
I will say this is an article from 2021, May of 2021,
Okay.
that Ant-Man and the Wasp would use the Mandalorian's volume technology for production,
Oh,
but I don't feel like if they did, it was on a very large scale.
Yeah,
I never felt like
There's a couple of shots where I feel like okay. So my other complaint that we'll get into further in
Spoilers.
spectacle and
Yeah.
after spoilers is like the shaky cam. They brought back
There
a
were
lot
a
of
couple
shaky
of shaky
cam
cam
moments
moments
There was
that
a decent
drove
amount of
me
shaky
nuts
cam, yeah.
because I feel like with as wild and as complex as the quantum realm CG backdrops are, they're so complicated and like everything's got
Yeah,
little
there's a lot
fibers.
going
And
on. Yeah.
when you add shaky cam to it, it's like I don't even know what I'm looking at. Like,
So it's possible because I've seen several articles talking about again, there's been kind of the Marvel crunch with VFX artist groups,
Right.
where they're kind of running through units that will either actually work with them or that it can actually take the time or deal with the headache that is Marvel.
Yeah.
And I've seen some articles kind of highlighting, hey, the VFX suffered some because this wasn't, Black Panther got the A team,
Yeah.
and Ant-Man got kind of the lesser crews that they could get. But honestly, I didn't see a lot for, again, given that like 80% of what was on screen at any given moment was CGI. I didn't see a lot where I could be like, ooh, that was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
anyone complaining wholesale about him, I think, is just.
Yeah, there are a couple of moments, but it
Yeah.
wasn't just, and especially like some of the backgrounds looked really pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my other thing too, just from kind of a concept of the quantum realm, right?
Uh-huh.
I wish they had done more with it to make it unique. In that, like, to me, it just felt like any planet they could have visited in Guardians of the Galaxy.
So the thing that this is kind of one of the things I was talking about earlier with like the issue that happens a lot with Marvel films is whenever they go to multiverse or a whole new planet or
like
whatever,
Doctor Strange.
It's just a little bit.
all it is just an analog for humans in a weird area.
Yeah,
Right?
there's green.
There's
Yeah.
definitely going to be aliens and that kind of stuff. That's totally fine. And again, their costumes and stuff are really good. But at the end of the day, it's still just breathable layers so they can take off their helmets so you can see the actors' faces.
So they can emote.
yeah.
And it's those kind of things to where, like, whenever you're watching this, is like, guys, like, we're in the quantum realm, the multiverse, whatever. Make it interesting instead of just a human analog.
Well, and even just like Thor: Love and Thunder, when they go on the moon and it's like all almost black and white and dark,
Yeah.
it looks cool. And there are some like mechanical things, like gravity wise, that change. That's, I guess, the thing I was missing from a lot of the quantum realm, and we'll get more into it in spoilers. Was just I didn't feel like there was anything about the quantum realm that had any kind of like
uniqueness.
Oh, well, this only happens down here, or now that we're down here, it works like this.
More setup going into it of that there are quirks within it, whether it's kind of like, the moon, you have some reduced gravity, or, a trick with the PIM particles that isn't possible in the normal universe is
like
doable here.
do a like portal style, like something kind of funky and
give me
weird that
something
you can
different,
only do it here to make it unique to that area.
Or that lets you, where it's not just because you're getting away from, the Thor realm where it's just power scaling. Let's give us something that's asymmetric, where you could be clever with it to solve the problems. And so, because again, it's Ant-Man. At the end of the day, he can get big, but he's not going to stand there and go toe-to-toe punching gods, it's just the nature of the character.
Suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would have been fun to have had something like that built into the idea, because we have, all the big players, the names associated with the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Pym and
Janet Van Dyne.
Right. Like, give me some quirks, give me some tricks out of this.
Well, and the other thing too, like to kind of touch on the punching gods comment, is like that's, to a degree, I think the problem with the movie, in a spoiler-free sense, is that I think Kang the Conqueror is the right villain for the MCU's next phase.
Yes.
I think he was the wrong villain for an Ant-Man movie.
We're gonna get into that in the spoiler, because I've got comments there.
That's just my general like take for people before we hit the spoiler wall. Is that, like, to me, I love Jonathan Major's performance.
Yeah, he killed it.
I think he's a great
for
choice
what he was given
for the character.
for what was like on the page or whatever. He did great. I just feel like, to me, that was another thing that didn't fit. Is it like it felt to me like there was a better way to introduce his villain that could have probably been better in a different movie, because this movie
it feels like this was an attempt to kind of prop up Ant-Man.
A little bit
well, maybe not as many people will go out to see it, but if the big bad of Phase 5 is in it, hey,
there we go, yeah. Well, but to your point of like how it seems like the the B and C squad may have been working on this movie, a lot of it felt like it didn't have that same level of TLC, like something that I would assume would have if you were introducing your next big bad guy in the MCU in a movie, for the first time.
That's a weird cross there too, where it's like, hey, we're really diving, kind of deep in on our big bad. So anyways, we're gonna let the B team handle that.
Yeah.
A team, I want you designing me an ironclad for the Atlantic Ocean.
So I think the bigger problem though, and this is just mostly an MCU problem, is at this point, you're getting into so much required homework and viewing to be able to understand kind of like where a lot of this stuff is going.
Now, I will say, from the perspective of someone who has not seen the other
You
two
didn't need
Ant-Man
it.
films, they did a great job of giving you what backstory you needed to make the story at least sound plausible, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense to what's going on.
And so I was actually going to kind of extend the olive branch there. Is like this film, you know, a lot of the other ones felt like you had to be
Right.
in on a lot of the stuff. This one
Yeah.
actually did feel like I'll say a decent jumping off point for someone that hasn't kept up with every single film
Yeah.
to have an understanding of like where kind of stuff is going to be going
I mean,
by the
you
end of
could have
this.
skipped
I could see that.
all
yeah.
of Phase 4, and you would be totally fine walking into this movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
For the meme of, MCU required reading,
Yeah.
this was incredibly light on that.
It was.
Yeah.
I will, again, I'll add to your olive branch here. We'll make it an olive tree. In
It's
terms
growing.
of, it gets bigger. It's just in terms of, from a storytelling perspective and from like how it fits in, because this is the 31st MCU
Woo!
film.
Mhm.
Baskin Robbins loved that, let me tell you, since they have the 31 flavors.
Yep.
But yeah, it felt like they did a very good job where if this is your first Marvel film, you could almost just walk in and just be like, there's a few things in the background that happen surrounding, the snap
Yeah.
and everyone coming back that gets referenced early. For the most part, you don't need much of MCU knowledge
Yeah.
to watch this film.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Did listening to this episode give you ants in your pants to find more great content?
Oh no.
Go to spoilersintendedpodcast.com.
Oh, get some help, Ryan, please.
I will.
Stop.
But I got ants in my pants for more content.
Ugh.
It's gross. Please get them out. This is terrible.
So we have a Discord.
I'll get to that. There's links to that on the website, spoilersintendedpodcast.com.
SpoilersIntendedPodcast.com.
That's right.
Stop, please.
You
Oh
can
my
find
gosh.
lots of previous episodes. We got lots of fun stuff on there. We got links to everything. Discord included. Andrew, what's on our Discord?
So our Discord includes what we're listening to today or tomorrow or next year. I
Anything
don't
ant
know.
related on there?
Maybe I could
Currently,
make an
no.
own ant channel.
Please no.
Ooh.
There is a
Three-man
spoiler.
ant
I'll make a
channel.
bug channel.
There is a spoiler thread to discuss Ant-Man 3.
There is.
Not
yes.
necessarily this episode, but also just the movie as general.
Yeah.
But even on top of that, we do have a lot of fun on the Discord. We have channels for hobbies, kind of what you're working on, models, cross stitching, all sorts of fun stuff.
Baking, cooking.
Yeah. I mean, we
Yeah.
discuss a whole lot of stuff that has nothing to do with movies or television shows.
Yeah,
or
it's just a
anything.
fun
the
place to
podcast
hang
in
out
general.
online.
Yeah.
As the old people say.
We also, speaking of the old people, and we also have socials.
Transition.
Just
whoosh.
two.
We're on all the Twitters.
No, we're not on Twitter. We have just the two, Facebook and Instagram. If you want to check it out, give us a follow. We post up there every week what we're watching, so you can kind of keep up with the show in terms of content.
Mhm.
But yeah, then give us a like, give us a share, leave a comment on there. Let us know you're out there.
Yeah, and just don't tell us you have ants in your pants. That's just
Please don't comment that.
Send them
anywhere.
directly to me. Any comments about the ant? Because I got to figure this
You're gonna
out.
get some really weird messages.
Oh,
Hey, man, what's the
man.
internet for if not for that?
Alrighty, we are back. We have built a spoiler wall out of ants that are not in Ryan's pants. We didn't
They
touch
are not.
those. We're leaving those
Yeah.
alone. Those can stay right over there.
I got plenty of ants. Here, put them
No,
on
no,
the wall.
no,
No,
no one's
come on.
touching. No one's touching those ants. So, in case you haven't gotten the message here, it is all spoilers all the time, and we're gonna kick it off with a little trivia.
For 3-man ant.
And I do mean a little trivia because there wasn't a ton out there.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a brand new film.
They shrunk the trivia too.
So, this is the first Ant-Man movie not co-written by Paul Rudd.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't
I
realize.
didn't know that he co-wrote the other one.
No,
I feel like the jokes hit a little better in the other ones, so I wonder if that's like
That's probably
I wonder
where-
if
yeah.
there is a bit of a factor in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually like Paul Rudd as an actor.
Oh, I
Just-
love Paul Rudd.
I love
yeah.
Paul Rudd. Yeah.
Like, he seems like a very genuine guy.
Who doesn't like Paul Rudd? Like,
Honestly,
come on, the guy's great.
this is the second trilogy in the MCU to have the same director for all three films.
Mm.
Spider-Man trilogy had John Watts,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and that's it.
It's
Which
really
is kind of crazy when you think about it.
It is.
honestly.
It is kind of weird though, like because whenever people say like the Spider-Man trilogy, right?
It's hard. You're like, wait, which one?
One that, but then I also don't consider the Spider-Man films with Tom Holland to be
A
like,
trilogy?
A trilogy.
Well, because they're almost he's not always the main character.
well,
They're
just kind of,
intrinsically tied to the MCU.
Yeah,
in
they're
some
so
ways.
inserted into different parts of the MCU. It doesn't feel like a complete story. Anyway, sorry, continue.
But not that the Ant-Man stories really go 1 to 2 to 3. They don't.
Well, but you do have a pretty decent tie-in, at least with his daughter, throughout all three.
That's
There's
okay,
through
that's
lines,
fair.
but there's through lines in the Spider-Man
Yeah.
movies too. I think that Ant-Man's also
It's just Tony Stark.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So this is Bill Murray's third comic book role.
Third.
All right.
I'm thinking really hard right
okay,
now.
so obviously we have this one. Comic
If you
book
get
role.
if you get either of the other two, I'll be impressed for one and just absolutely flabbergasted for the other.
Howard the Duck?
No, get out.
Okay.
My mind is like a Rolodex.
That's a good. I like that. I like that attempt.
that
though.
was the deepest
That was
cut
a
I
good
could think
shot.
of.
That
You
was-
gave it
yeah.
a good effort.
I don't know.
All right, are you ready? Are you ready for the first?
Yeah, go ahead. I got
5,
nothing.
All right.
4,
I got nothing.
3.
Go ahead and call the buzzer. Don't even
Buzzer.
buzzer.
All right. So his second comic appearance is the voice of Garfield in the Garfield movie.
Oh, that doesn't even
Comic
count.
strip is.
They have books. They have books.
Okay,
All right.
what's the first?
The deepest cut here is he was the voice of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, in a 1975 radio show.
Whoa.
Oh, okay.
Right?
All right.
So
So, that's
again-
like super deep.
I
cut
told you,
here.
if you get either
All
of these, I
8
would
people
be
that
shocked.
listened to it, I'm sure, had a blast.
I-
It's
feel good for
1975.
guessing
People
Howard the
listen to
Duck.
radio.
I was like, meatballs? No. Scrooged? No.
I
Groundhog Day?
actually
No.
liked him in this. Like, it didn't feel like he was actually
didn't.
phoning in the performance.
No, yeah,
didn't,
compared to a lot
but
of Bill Murray appearances and
Right.
stuff where it's like they just gave him some cash and he showed up.
we talked about that in our Ghostbusters episodes.
Yeah.
It did feel unnecessary though, of like, why is this guy Bill Murray? This could have been anybody.
It could have literally
but,
been anybody.
Yeah.
But it added more fun to the scene, I think,
Yeah.
because
Sure.
it's just Bill Murray.
Because it's just Bill Murray being Bill Murray.
So
Anyways.
I mentioned it before the break, but this is
Yeah.
the 31st film in the MCU. Baskin Robbins rejoices. I actually, until the
What-
Ant-Man,
were they were they a sponsor before this?
I mean, he
He worked at
Scott
Baskin
Lang
Robbins,
worked
yeah.
at Baskin
He worked
Robbins.
at Baskin
Yeah.
Robbins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, but
Was that
again,
the first one or
Yeah,
the
it was
second
the
one?
first one.
First one? Okay.
before the first one came out, because the only Baskin Robbins within driving distance that I know of had closed here like years ago.
Yeah.
And so it came out, I was like, oh, they're not out of business. They exist somewhere else.
It's so crazy when there's like chains that don't exist near you and then you see them, you're like, oh, that's
like,
still a thing.
Like A&W, like
Right.
I miss the only A&W that used to be around here, honestly. Love me some root beer.
I don't think I've ever eaten at an actual Baskin
I'm not-
Robbins
Burgers were
before.
actually, the Baskin
Oh,
Robbins.
Yeah.
Baskin Robbins? Oh, man, we
It's
used,
fine.
we used to go there all the time because it was just right there on 31.
Oh.
Anyways,
The biggest thing was always they had a lot of flavors
Yeah.
compared to like back in the day when you had like 4. You want
Yeah,
chocolate,
vanilla,
strawberry,
chocolate.
vanilla, or this thing?
or do you want
Or
chocolate vanilla
Superman.
swirl?
Yeah.
So, final piece of trivia: the Council of Kangs end credits, like end
Yeah,
shots,
yeah.
Mhm.
is a shot-for-shot recreation of their first panel in the comics. when they
Yeah,
were
I was
introduced.
going to say, like, I have actually seen that.
And you can, it feels like a comic book.
It really does.
You kind of did have
you
that
could,
feel
you could
to it,
feel
yeah.
the 60s in it.
Yeah. You can feel the 60s.
the Council of Kangs. It's right there in the title, you know?
Which I didn't mind that bit. Just at the end, you know,
Mhm.
I am getting kind of tired of having to stick around. Like, okay, I don't mind sitting through credits because
You sit
if
through
I-
credits normally.
Yeah, if
basically,
if I worked on a film, I would want someone else to go sit
See
through
your
the
name.
credits so they can
Yeah.
see my name.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. I don't like being forced to sit there, even though I will anyways. It's really on the sense
And-
of like,
someone
Andrew's
holding
gonna
you
do
down?
it. Just don't make it sound like homework.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Well, for me, it's more of like I get excited to stick around
to
afterwards.
see what it is.
But when it's something that lets me down and I'm like, that's it. I'm
Well,
always like
3
upset.
I
seconds.
actually really liked the Loki tie-in at the end, which I
Mhm.
was really excited for
That was
because I
good.
loved Loki. The
Well,
TV show.
also because
I thought
that,
it was pretty
that
good.
happened, and I was like, oh yeah, there will be a season 2 of that. Sweet, I like
Yep.
that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
My problem
to
with the
see-
Loki show is just it was inconsistent. I feel like there were some episodes that were really, really good and others that were like, fine.
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, well, that's
A lot of the
That
Marvel
happens.
shows are like that.
yeah. I mean, like
yeah.
the first like 4 episodes of WandaVision were like almost perfect, and then you
Then
get
it
into then it
lost
turns
its
into a
control.
Marvel
Uneven.
film,
Yeah,
or a Marvel
when
TV show.
when WandaVision kicked off, which we're way afield at this moment.
Yeah.
But when it kicked off as like an homage of each decade of
Oh, it was
sitcom,
fantastic.
It was so
man,
good,
this
yeah.
is such a good concept and well executed.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
it turned into Marvel.
But
Marvel.
it did, like, it had to get out of that eventually.
did.
'cause,
It
like,
did.
the crux of it.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
Anyways, back to the plot.
yeah, back to the plot.
Ant-Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
Quantumania.
That's a dumb name.
Where it is a dumb name.
It's kind of like.
I mean, we have Multiverse of Madness. We've had some dumb names lately.
Well, no, but this one's really dumb because of the Quantumania.
Well, like I feel like again, if it had been written a little better, they could have made fun of something.
yeah, well, like
to make it,
if like Scott Lang would have like, wow, this is like Quantumania, like something totally
and they're
like,
that's not gonna happen. We're not gonna keep saying it.
Or like Scott is like, well, once you get this far down to the quantum realm, it's kind of like a mania, and Pym in the background is like, I don't call it that.
Yeah. And then they get to the end and Kang's like, what do you have, some kind of quantum mania? And he's like, yes! Yes! See, I'm writing a better movie for them right now. It's right there, y'all.
God, I can't even imagine Jonathan Majors saying that unironically.
Some sort of quantum
How
mania.
could you possibly think you could defeat me? What are you, suffering from some sort of quantum mania? Yes, he said it!
Yes, Kang! Yes!
On that note, let's get into some spectacle.
Spectacle!
Ryan?
I'll go first. So I really liked the design of the quantum realm. I thought the CG and like just the art direction, I guess, looked good. The only thing that was kind of weird about it was it felt like there was a ceiling on everything.
It did kind of
had this feeling like we're in a big room instead of it being like a expansive thing. But
I think because most scenes were, I won't say they're dark, but they're like more muted.
They are,
It definitely gave the impression of we're in a big building and there's like the overhead lights aren't really working. So it's just whatever filters through like skylights or something.
It kind of had that vibe too.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the character designs and costumes, like we said earlier. I thought that stuff was
pretty fantastic.
Was really good.
Yeah.
The quotation mark Star Wars Cantina scene was really cool.
It was really cool.
A lot of good practical.
Kind of feel like, are we just ripping off the Star Wars Cantina scene a little
I don't
bit?
care. I mean, it's just ingrained in pop culture. Let them rip it off.
But
they own
like
it.
visually, I feel like a lot of the stuff was wild looking. A lot of the characters were. I just wish there had been. I guess that was. I guess another problem is it just felt very surface level. A lot of it, like the visual stuff, was like cool to look at. But none of it was like...
It wasn't like a functional universe.
Well, it's not like Avatar where you have the really cool plants and you touch it and then it closes up on you or whatever.
There was no outside of drinking goop that lets you speak to the quantum people.
I got to say right there, from a world building perspective, while however the goop works is whatever, but I appreciate that they just did that as opposed to just being like,
get it out of the
down
way.
here, everyone speaks the universal language, English. Like, what?
Yeah, so, I did enjoy that little bit.
The only thing visually and spectacle wise really that annoyed me was again the shaky camera. A lot of the shaky cam. I'm sick of it. Stop it. And there was definitely a couple of shots where they're running and fighting in shaky cam that I'm pretty sure they filmed on the volume.
Yeah, when his daughter was running
Yes.
small for the first time, I was like, ooh.
Yeah. That, and then I did not like what they did to MODOK. Like, I'm not a big MODOK fan. I don't think anybody is. Nobody's like, MODOK's my guy. But
I don't know. We have a friend
really?
Who loves MODOK.
He's
a big MODOK fan.
Big MODOK
He's a
fan,
big MODOK
wow,
fan.
they exist. Okay. Anyways, I did not like the way that they handled just specifically the CG for that. It just looked like they stretched out like that actor.
Well, that was kind of the whole point.
In order to make his face
didn't look
fit
good,
that
though.
curve, it was a little awkward. Like, it was like they smashed his face up against a pane of glass.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
So what I was expecting, just because I knew, like, I've never seen MODOK in any like comics. I don't read comics, but I know what he looks like, right?
He was in
Right.
the old Iron Man cartoon. Did you ever watch that one?
No.
In the 90s when Spider-Man was on?
Doesn't MODOK have like his own cartoon like right now?
He did on Hulu. It was a claymation show.
Yeah.
And he's played by Patton Oswalt.
So whenever I think of him, I think of the dude from the brain in the dude's stomach from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Krang.
Krang. But so whenever I think of that, I also think of Futurama, where they just have like the heads in the jars.
In the jars,
And
yeah.
that's what I was expecting. And then whenever like he, his little faceplate popped, I was like, oh, here we are.
Oh yeah,
bracing.
they hit you with that like right in your face, like whoa.
Yeah, it was weird, but I don't think it really bothered me because it was already just weird anyways.
We were already honestly at that point. We were in a really weird area.
Yeah,
Just get weird with. Let's be weird, and let's have normal people just be like, oh god.
yeah.
My thing wasn't that it looked weird. It was that the CG didn't look good to me.
That's fair.
I get what they were going for.
Yeah.
I think they didn't nail it. That's my take.
His whenever he had like his little faceplate down, that's always what looked weird to me.
Okay.
I see. I thought that looked good.
That looked fine
I thought
to
they
me.
handled
Okay,
like
maybe,
the metallic of that really well.
Okay.
Yeah, like that just
That's
like
fair.
another CG
Yeah.
element to me. It's when you could see his face that was
stretched
like
face.
I was like, I don't
Although
like this.
I did like the way they played with it, where like Scott was like, "Oh," and he's like, "What, does it look bad?" He's like, "No, it's you look good."
Right.
Like they had good play with it.
I had
Yeah.
another layer of laughing because I was laughing at how bad the CG looked. I pictured he was talking about that. Like,
Well, I would love to know what Paul Rudd actually saw when those scenes were filmed. Like what visual?
Right.
They have like a big printout of Darren's face.
Yeah.
Just like
dude, just holding like a
or
cardboard cutout.
maybe he was like behind one of those magnifying glasses where it like like a funhouse
that'd be
mirror
a good
and
idea, yeah.
distorts it so you can see something.
I would love to see some behind the scenes there, where because they put stuff where like Josh Brolin had the stick on his back that indicated where Thanos' eye level actually is.
Oh,
Yeah.
So the actors look in the correct place instead of just staring at like Thanos' stomach.
yeah.
So I do wonder how they handled that, but it would be funny if it was like just the actor with a giant magnifying glass.
like, how do you just not laugh when you're on these sets?
Right?
For just how absurd some of these like situations that these
of
actors
course,
have to like get into.
We also have, going back to a not good film series, The Hobbit,
yeah.
where you have Ian
Mhm.
McKellen breaking down on set because he's just like, this isn't why I want to act. I don't want to just talk to green boxes.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
and this is no defense for the working production for The Hobbit, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, I mean, Ian McKellen is a traditional theater actor.
He's a stage actor, yeah.
and like he thrives off of that kind of interaction.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I completely understand where he's coming from.
Yeah,
because that's
yeah,
just, one, it feels very impersonal and awful, but then
Yeah.
especially going from the full production of Lord of the Rings, where there was obviously green screen and that kind of stuff,
But there was a lot of
but
practical.
there was
yeah.
a lot of practical. Where they were under such a gun for production because they were basically Lord of the Rings had like 3 years worth of pre-production. This only had 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting
And
I'm getting in the weeds,
and
but
back to Three-Man
we're
Ant.
wandering.
What did
far
you
in
two
the
think
field.
about the spectacle?
So honestly, I think again we just saw Avatar 2 Underwater
Mhm.
Boogaloo not that long ago.
Yeah.
Like the gold standard of, hey, this screen you look at is 90% CG and it all looks good.
yeah,
Right.
And honestly, again, given that this is, probably not Marvel's A-team VFX working on this,
Mm-hmm.
it held up pretty well
Yeah.
for the most part throughout. And I liked, again, like you all have already said, the costume designs, a lot of the kind of your alien creature designs, especially the bit when they first land and it's Scott and Cassie
Cassie.
Yeah.
and like the paramecium or whatever
Yeah.
rises up. And it's
Yeah.
like, because at the moment I was like, oh, if that's like the big threats down here, it's just like microscopic creatures. And that's
Right.
not really what you got later on. But in the moment I was like, oh, this could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew?
So I liked all the costume designs and
Yeah.
everything. So honestly, what got me was, and this is just a problem with most modern films, it's just too dark for a lot of the
Yeah,
time.
it
And it's
definitely.
not that there wasn't any scenes where I couldn't see something.
Mm-hmm.
It was just too dark.
Well, it was like they filmed it and then they went back and put like a -1 filter on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those that kind of stuff, like we're in this weird universe. Like, let me see it.
Well, and they didn't really explain how light works because there was like a nighttime
Yeah.
and a daytime in this universe.
But there's not really a
But
sun.
there's not really a sun. And so
Yeah.
you're like, so what, like, huh?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of scenes where it is like a shade or two too dark. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, why? Do
Yeah.
y'all have
Yeah,
something
that's
to
kinda-
light this area up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, everything else honestly looked fine to me. There, there's a couple moments of CGI green screen that just didn't look good.
Oh, I
Sure.
also like
that happens in every film.
Anything, yeah.
I liked the sentient like flying buildings.
Oh, those are so cool.
those are cool. Those are
Oh,
really
yeah.
cool design. Just in like the very organic
Yeah.
building.
Curvy, like the shape of them, like eggplants almost. Or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah,
then
with
they got
little
little
arms.
rockets for arms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those I like those a lot. I thought a lot of I call it the world building, but just kind of the general
Yeah.
feel of whatever the quantum verse is was pretty cool.
I thought the art direction for basically everything was quite good.
Mhm.
I really liked Kang's design.
Yeah,
Yes.
I thought
especially
design was-
his
costume was
his
killer.
costume was really cool. And because whenever you look at like these old comic books from like the 60s and stuff, you're just like,
Sure.
how the heck are they going
How
to
are they
figure
gonna
this
do
out?
it?
And then they're ooh, yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
and when the blue face
Yep.
shield comes down, I was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
That actually does bring up one point. This isn't really spectacle, but I really hate how they just have like magic helmets, basically,
Right.
for
They
everyone.
pop up, close down. Yeah,
just so the characters can actually they'll do something cool, and then it'll pop up because they had to CGI them because they're not doing this in real life,
yeah.
and then it's like, oh, actor's back. Like because it pops up, so then they can actually like have a line of
Yeah,
dialogue.
they have the action sequence, and the nanobot helmet pops over their face. They fight, and then it pops down. Snappy quip.
Yeah.
Turn stage right. Helmet pops back up. Fight next creature. Or whatever. It's
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. I think that's more entertainment, but I'm skipping ahead.
Oh, anyways, speaking of skipping ahead, let's look at performances.
Yes.
I'm gonna take this.
You go first.
Do
this
it.
time, yeah.
So I'm gonna open this by saying, for Loki, that version of Kang that Jonathan Majors did there,
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of it because I felt like
You didn't
it was,
understand the character.
well, it felt like it was a little too manic, and it didn't have that undercurrent of menace and violence
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
want from a big bad.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this version nailed that.
Oh yeah.
Especially when we get kind of the flashback bits with him and Janet, where it's kind of like the manipulative side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then when she has like the history's worst poker face. And like,
Right.
I'm
Michelle
watching,
Pfeiffer just has the worst poker
I'm
face.
watching mass
play poker,
murder,
Michelle
and he's just like, "What are you seeing, Janet? It's like, please tell me you can lie to this man." Nope, you can't. Okay,
Yeah, it's like, try, give it a shot. You were shopping for
flowers.
space flowers? Dang.
Almost had it.
Yeah, but I felt like his character, again, because he kind of, or also like the prison scene where he's talking to Scott,
Yeah.
and he kind of flips from like, "I'm being cooperative, we're going to work together," to, "I will literally crush you and I will make your daughter watch, or if that doesn't work, I'll crush your daughter and make you watch."
Yeah.
Like that switch flip, that's the kind of villain I want out of him,
I
and
don't
he
think
nails it.
Anybody that watches this movie is going to have an issue with Jonathan Majors' performance. I
No.
feel like that's
No.
the one universal truth from this movie is no matter who watches this, everyone's going to walk away being like, wow, that guy.
Well, and he's a fantastic actor, just wholesale.
Yeah.
But he definitely feels to be like having, I'll say, like a kind of like a rise.
He's having a moment right
Yeah.
now
Well-
with Antman and Creed 3 like back to back,
Mhm.
like months.
Yeah,
less than
I'm
a month
excited
away.
for Creed 3.
Yeah.
But also because of the nature of Kang, where it's like, well, you have all these versions. Right? The council,
you get to play a lot of different characters.
He can cover tons of ground. Like, hey, today we're putting a pharaoh costume on you, and you're gonna have a slightly different voice. And tomorrow
Yeah.
we're painting you blue. All
Yep.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah, and because of that, you do get, as an actor, you get a ton of different range and
Yeah, you can
and
do all kinds of
options that
things,
you
yeah.
can really do some fun stuff with. And I think that's the biggest thing of him being like the timeless one or whatever it was in Loki, and then now he's actually
Mhm.
Kang the Conqueror, which is the big bad guy.
which we'll get into plot entertainment. There are other issues there.
Yeah, there are.
But who
Yeah.
else wants to pick up some performances?
I
I don't
mean,
want to take everything.
Obviously, Paul Rudd is Paul Rudd. He's
Yeah,
great.
fantastic.
He does great. I feel like the only issue this time was he wasn't given enough material compared to the other Ant-Man movies and other stuff I've seen him in.
Mhm.
I feel like there's some jokes in here that he does really, because his delivery is always great. It's just I don't feel like there was enough Paul Rudd style humor for him to really excel. And the stuff
Yeah.
that was there was like passable, but not his best. Like it's not like I'm going to be quoting and you'll never believe what Paul Rudd said in this movie.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
like Wet
yeah.
Hot American Summer, I can quote like 18 things he said in that movie.
Yeah,
Other than that, I think Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas did passable jobs. They did pretty good. They didn't do anything that made me go, "Oh man,
Oof, yeah.
this is some of their best performances ever." But at the same time, they didn't like completely phone it in or anything. It was just again, maybe it's more what they were given to work with, but their performances were like pretty good.
I thought Michelle Pfeiffer and Jonathan Majors
Interactions were
interactions
good.
together were quite
Yeah.
good.
They did have a lot of good chemistry, and especially in those like the flashback
Yeah,
scenes or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, like her interaction with her family was a little bit. It felt kind of stilted, but I think that's more of just because of the nature
Well,
of
I mean,
what
like the line
she's trying to hide.
Yeah, the lines she's
Yeah.
given for that are, "I don't want to talk about it." Well, how
Right.
much can we really go? How,
So, again,
how in
that's
depth
where
can we get?
I'm trying to dance around plot a little bit because
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of it is what they were given.
Yeah.
So their performances were fine. The only person I really thought kind of struggled a little bit was Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang. I don't know. She didn't really do it for me. They recast her from the last movie.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay, I wonder why they're changing actresses. And then she did fine, but she was just kind of played, and again, this is speaking probably more to the writing, but her character was more the
Angsty teenager.
I'm an angsty teenager.
Yeah,
I'm
well-
going to get us into trouble. I don't understand what's going on, and I'm totally redeemed by the end because I love you, Dad. You know, like type
Yeah.
thing. And
It's such a
yeah.
trope, and also again, the older we get, the more that we get angsty teenager on screen, the more it is to
Yeah.
just be like, "You stupid teens,
get off my
Yeah.
lawn.
get off my lawn."
What about you, Andrew? What do you think?
I mean,
performances?
pretty much pretty much the same across the board. Catherine Newton was probably the weakest, but even then, I did like her character. I'll say in bits and pieces of the film. Most of the time, whenever she's talking with Paul Rudd, she did like those scenes are good.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But any of the stuff where she's kind of like on her own just didn't
Yeah.
really feel. It didn't
Didn't-
hit the way you would expect it to. But I really did like Michelle Pfeiffer and Jonathan Majors' kind of chemistry that they had. Especially in the flashbacks, because you get to see a little bit more of like there's not something happening at this moment, so they actually get to like stretch a little bit.
yeah,
I thought.
they can just kind of act out almost like we're normal, we're living our normal life. This is what we're trying to attempt, and then once you get present day, there's all that tension between them,
Yeah.
and they do a good job of that transition.
Yeah, the other thing is too, Evangeline Lilly, she's always been kind of a mixed bag with me.
Mhm.
I watched Lost when when it was coming out and stuff, and she had some really good moments in that show here and there. Unfortunately, her character wasn't written very well,
Right.
but and I feel that she's kind of been pushed into some of these kind of roles that like she's just the love interest.
Yeah. I feel like she had a lot more to do and a lot more like screen, like things to do on screen in the second Ant-Man
She did.
movie. And
This one,
hence the
like-
name Ant-Man and the Wasp. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
it felt like, okay, cool. So when they named this one Ant-Man and the Wasp, I was like, awesome. And then like she doesn't have a ton to do in the movie, so I don't want to ding her
She just
performance.
shoots stuff at things.
Necessarily?
She's definitely kind of a backseat character. Like
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, when we're talking about it from like Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Douglas, they almost felt like more
Yeah.
active characters in this movie than
Yeah.
the other character whose name is on the title.
Well, I feel like
Which is weird.
they actually probably influence more things in this movie than Ant-Man does, if you think about
I
it.
mean, they do.
Mhm.
Well,
Like-
at the end of the day, the primary conflict is the result of Janet's relationship with Kang, and then also what Cassie creates that lets the connection happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, performance pretty
Yeah,
well covered.
I
I
think
mean,
that's good.
honestly, it was pretty good, and I don't think there was any one moment where she was like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
I feel like 90% of my complaints with a lot of the performances are down to more the writing
Writing
than the
than it,
actual
yeah.
performance themselves.
Mhm.
So we're not to writing yet. So let's
Yeah.
talk about some music score.
I actually thought the score for this was better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
It definitely had some pretty solid moments in it. There's not anything that like sticks out to me like I'll say like Endgame or Infinity War from Alan Silvestri,
Right.
but it definitely hit a lot better than I'll definitely say Spider-Man No Way Home.
Mm.
The gold standard of low bars.
Yeah, but it also didn't hit the heights of like Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but this one
Right.
definitely had a little bit more time put into it, I think, than some of the other ones.
There,
that
there
we've
were
watched.
a couple of tracks. I'm trying to remember exactly when they hit, like maybe when they're first going to the quantum realm.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of them that had a really cool feel to them, and
Yeah.
they sound different, and they had that kind of like Land of the Lost, Journey to the
It did,
center
yeah.
of the earth type like sense of wonder to it, you know, that I thought did good. And then there's other parts where it's just kind of like action scene, you know, like it feels kind of like
Punching time.
dialed back a little bit on that.
Yeah, I definitely felt like this was an above average Marvel
Mm-hmm.
score.
Yeah.
And then part of that is the fact that you have such an alien landscape to work with. You're going to have these big visuals,
Yeah.
and it's just natural. You're going to want something to back that. And they did a good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly was not a No Way Home where you left the theater wondering, was there music in this movie? I never doubted at any point in this movie
Yeah, like-
if there was music or not.
Well, and it's one of those things where a lot of people, and even our 1-star reviewer has alluded to that is very similar to Star Wars in
Mhm.
this, and I think that they took a good lesson from that and looked at it and said, hey, we need some good music to go with this kind of alien
Yeah.
world that we've made.
Yeah.
Which again, for as much, this has been a very polarizing film. You know,
Yeah.
critics, audiences, etc.
Yeah, right now there's like the lowest rated Marvel film period for critics.
On both critics and audience right now. on
Yeah.
Rotten
Oh,
Tomatoes.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which the
it-
audience score is always way high.
I thought this was like 84% or
That-
something
that's-
like
that's
that.
the
the
lowest.
lowest
Wow.
Marvel.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
audience
The
score.
audience-
even
is-
even lower than Eternals.
That's what I said. So first off, for those listening, I think this is a better movie than Eternals. like to me.
Yeah.
But like according to Rotten Tomatoes, it's not. But
That's
to
crazy.
me, I definitely think this is
Well, Rotten Tomatoes critics' reviews are inherently broken already
sure.
because
Well,
it's a binary system and it's terrible.
Yeah, they also manipulate those reviews, but we won't
They
go
do.
into that.
Yeah.
We won't get into we won't pull out the tinfoil.
But even outside of Rotten Tomatoes, on a lot of aggregate sites,
is.
this
Yeah.
is one of the lower reviewed, if not the lowest Marvel movie.
Which I think it's way better than some of the other ones that
Oh,
have come out for
come on,
sure.
like Thor: Dark World is
I think
still
this
out
is
there.
in my bottom 5 for sure.
Ooh, I don't know about
I don't
that.
think it is.
Yeah, it's better than Thor: The Dark World.
It's better than Iron Man 3.
No, Iron Man 3 is actually good.
No. Oh,
Well, okay, actually,
all right.
Yeah, it
I
is.
actually thought Iron Man 3 was fine.
It's better than Iron Man 2. Like,
Well, okay, yeah, Iron Man 2 is not a great
Iron
film.
Man 2, I liked parts of Iron Man 2. We're going on a tangent now, but it's
we're,
kind of
we're
like
gonna have to come back.
it
into this
reminds
and
me
do
of
a bunch of
our
Marvel at
Bond
one
discussions
point.
where there's a lot of Bond movies where there's really fun moments, but the movie itself is like, eh.
Yeah.
I feel like that's Iron Man 2. There's a lot of fun moments where I'm like, I like
Got like
this.
the big
I like this.
plasma whip.
Whiplash, yeah. Like I like
Yeah.
when he whips a car in half. That's cool. But then the movie itself, is
Isn't
like,
that great?
Yeah. So,
Man,
yeah,
we are tangenting quite a bit here.
I would say it's better than Eternals for sure.
See, yeah, like come on now, this isn't that hard.
Yeah, it's still in my bottom 5.
I feel like this is upper middle.
Yeah,
half.
this is like a B.
Oh,
this
no,
is-
this is definitely bottom 5 for this guy right here.
So there's 31 MCU films, and I feel like this lands somewhere in between 10 and 15 from the bottom.
See, for me, it'd be
Wow,
like
that's way
20
too
and
high.
15.
But see, I can see
Yeah,
that too.
Mine
yeah.
would be 25 or under.
There's a stack of movies in the middle of Marvel where you could kind of take or leave them, right?
I'm gonna just out of curiosity for the last segment of this, I'll look up a list of them and I'm gonna go through and pick which movies
That's
are
fine.
worse than this.
For entertainment, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I was about
okay.
to make a terrible Leonardo DiCaprio joke.
Do
but
it.
No, I can't. I can't do it. The time has passed.
Oh, no.
I know what the joke is. So, anyways, plot. Let's talk plot. Huh? Yeah. Plot.
Sure.
Andrew, you want some plot?
Yeah, I think it's a terrible plot. It's one of those things where whenever you have these, magical scientists that can just create, things to talk to a realm that only like 2 movies ago, if you got stuck there, you were there forever. And then now they figured out a way to come back, and now you can just go back and forth.
The transition from it being like a beacon and they get pulled in, which I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
To just like, well, now we travel back and forth at will is questionable.
Yeah, the little bit at the end where they're like, oh, we opened up a portal for only a certain amount of time. And then like Kang stops him. And then Kate comes back and saves him. Or not Kate.
Kate.
Talking about
Wasp? The Wasp?
Yeah, Evangeline Lilly. But
Hope.
she is Kate
Hope,
in
Hope,
Wasp. Hope, sorry.
Sorry, you said Kate, and it like broke everything in my brain. All the synapses that
It's
connected.
because
to
I
Hope.
mentioned Lost earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then she comes back and then the portal goes away. And I'm like, oh, there's some consequences to this. They're going to be stuck here. And then the portal just opens back up. I'm like, oh, whatever.
So, interesting fact here. I've seen some articles and some like Reddit type posts where people are making suppositions that was actually part of a reshoot.
Oh.
The ending was changed in
After,
reshoots. Like fairly recently, like back in January.
Oh, interesting.
They're saying there's some like on-set shots of them in costume for those scenes.
Oh, interesting.
Where they went back and changed something to do that.
Oh.
So I don't know, because it did feel like that last bit really weakened the ending.
Yeah.
Where it was like, hey, we're gonna have major consequence of, they make the trade-off and the
they
daughter is
stopped
out,
Kang,
but now they had to make the choice of, well, the two of them are here now,
which
or
I
whatever.
thought, whenever that happened, I was like, oh, I kind of like this.
Yeah, like that puts some weight on this, right?
Like over the,
and then it's like undo. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh.
Yeah, then they just control Z'd it, and it was like, okay, well.
Yeah, and that kind of bothered me, but then also the issue with Janet to where like there's clearly this world-ending kind of bad guy, and then she just refuses to talk about it for reasons.
Yeah.
Like there's like whenever she's up in the normal person world on Earth, there's no reason why she should be afraid to talk about it. Right?
As far as I could, I don't.
So one of my largest plot frustrations was the unnecessary like withholding of information for plot reasons.
They do the whole trope of, we don't have time to tell you now, so let's walk. It's like, but you're like gonna hike for a couple of miles. You have plenty of time to talk about
the
this.
thing that killed it for me essentially was when she did finally talk, and I was like, that's it? That's what you were
You
holding
didn't
this
like
whole
murder
time?
children? Like, what's
Yeah,
going
like,
on here?
Kick puppies? Like, come on.
Let me summarize her story that she withheld. He's a bad guy.
I didn't
That's
know.
it.
I didn't know he was a bad guy
And
until,
I helped
then I
him.
prevented it.
Yeah,
And-
it's like you didn't do anything wrong.
It's one sentence.
Yeah.
Like you can't break that out at a family table, dinner. Like just say, hey, oh, by the way, I met this dude in the quantum realm. Bad news, real bad dude. I helped him out, but like he's trapped, so we're good.
and that's it.
Done. None of this. This movie doesn't happen. You know?
And it's like, now
Yeah.
we just don't have to touch the quantum realm, period.
I kept waiting. As cagey as she was being, I was like, oh man,
There's gonna be a big shoe here.
what's
yeah.
gonna be like? I probably to my own detriment, like hyped myself up. The longer she kept delaying talking
Yeah.
about it and keeping her closest family members who are currently trying to survive in the quantum realm that she apparently has tons of information about, and
Yeah.
she's not telling them anything about how anything works, what this is for, what that does. Just drink this. Why? That's it. No context for anything.
I was
When she
ready
built up
for
to
one
that.
of these where it's like,
Yeah.
so Hope, so this is your real father.
Right. I was like, is Bill
Or-
Murray her dad?
or like
What's happening
or like
here?
we drop like Kang and like his loyal lieutenant. Yeah, so Hope, that's your stepbrother. You know, like one of these things. I was
Yeah.
ready for one of those to hit
Something,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just poor writing.
I have a lot of plot issues, so I'll let Steven go next.
So I think my biggest complaint, and this again, because we're in plot, we're touching entertainment, it's almost inevitable.
Yeah.
Is we've now seen 2 instances of Kang,
Mhm.
and he's the big bad, be afraid. He's going to, wreck everything.
Yeah.
And in both, he's just kind of beaten.
Well, he was.
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't even talked about the time traveling ants yet.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even. That's such a
We-
whatever.
We were
man.
so off the rails by then that I was like,
No,
sure.
Well, but that's the thing. Well, that's the thing though, is like he wouldn't have been defeated if it wasn't for time traveling ants.
Yeah, no, that was such a
Yeah.
whatever, man. That I just like because
He was like, oh, I guess this is happening.
I
now.
had expected
Yeah.
the ants to have shown up, right? Because they were brought up. You
Yeah.
saw them
you
get
see them
pulled in.
fall, the quantum
So I was
realm with
ready
them.
for the ants to like.
but
They get there and like the society of the quantum verse is actually ants, and now they have their friend ants who can communicate. I was expecting something from the start,
yeah.
and they finally showed up. It's like, okay, whatever, man. At least the ants got
Well,
here.
And they were stuck in a time dilation for thousands of years, and then they made their
Whatever.
own advanced society, and now they're here. It's fine.
I just
Ugh.
I rolled that pretty hard.
Yeah.
There could have been way better. I can't like Michael Douglas delivering that line. Like, how many takes did it take to get a straight face for him for the entire sequence?
Well, so okay, and this is the thing. I don't know anything about the comic book Kang or anything like that,
Right.
but as far as I know, he's just a normal dude. Like he's basically like Tony Stark
So-
that has figured out a way to essentially be outside of time, which is fine.
I am unclear about that also. I'm currently reading through the 2001 Kang Dynasty storyline right now, and we haven't gotten far enough. I haven't
For
gotten
like the backstory
to
kind of
understand
like how,
the backstory. But,
But-
like my interpretation was, so continue with what you're about to say, because I don't know. I don't have
Well,
any.
so from my understanding is he's basically just a normal dude like Tony Stark,
Mm-hmm.
except he was the bad Tony Stark and not the good Tony Stark, basically.
He,
Okay.
he basically, yeah.
Well, and essentially what happens is that he gets his little power suit and stuff like that. That's why he's strong, is because he has the suit, not because of
He has some
some inherent
power.
power outside
Right.
of being able to figure out how to get outside of time.
Right.
And because of that, like at the end of the day, he's still just a normal dude.
Yeah, and also, I mean, another,
you without your suit, Tony?
Well, and
Yeah.
so to that point,
Yeah.
before we move past it, like they don't do anything in this movie to explain what his powers are, how his suit works, how any of it has any
No.
kind of bearing on anything. And that leads to a lot of my stuff where like the stakes are just like amorphous of like, so he has this ray he can shoot out of his suit that just disintegrates people on command.
Yep.
And he just stops using it when anyone
he shoots
Anyone that
Ant-Man
has
with
a, has a
stun
casting
version.
credit.
Yeah, when the ant family shows up, the one group of people that could actually stop him, he's like, better not use that anymore. And then all of a sudden he has a force field thing, and I'm like, when did he get that? Has he always had this?
He's
Why didn't
Space
he,
Ghost.
Why didn't he use it earlier? You know, there's so many inconsistencies with his powers of like,
Yeah.
if you had this 3 situations earlier, you could have avoided getting hit, and you didn't. You know, like,
this is the problem with all like super villains
Mm.
is that it's the Superman complex. They either forget that they have the power, they want a monologue, which is, we've
Right.
all learned from the
Yeah.
Incredibles is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And,
Always.
you know, and it's just the plot has to happen, which is not a good excuse.
No, yeah,
Right.
it felt kind of like not the same at all, but Socks from Lightyear.
Yeah.
Oh,
Where
where
it's
he's
like,
the Swiss Army
Oh,
plot
we need
solution.
this so he can get out of this. Got it. Oh, we need him not to disintegrate the people on the poster of the movie. Got it. He won't use that power right here. you
Yeah.
know? And it felt like I just wish they had some kind of a metric of I only have X number of these shots or something.
Or,
you don't
or
need to
just,
get too
just the
nitty-gritty.
Ant-Man, like Pym particles counteract it.
Right.
Boom, nailed
Bang,
it. Now the
got
Ant
it.
family is safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody could have got hit and been like, oh, God. Okay, I'm good.
And
what
like
happened?
Paul
Yeah.
Rudd would be perfect for that, where he gets blasted. Oh God, I'm totally fine.
And
I
then
don't.
Janet or Hank
yeah,
can
and
be like,
it's
it's because of the Pym particles.
yeah,
or,
or maybe the Pym particles are disrupting it to some degree.
Yeah, and
Anything
that's
like
all
that
we
would've-
needed was 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, and like that's it.
yeah, it would have gone
It
a long
won't
way.
solve 1 or 2 lines of dialogue. Won't solve time traveling ants. I'm
No, it
sorry.
won't.
But,
No.
but we can try
But
somewhere. I don't know.
why didn't the other why didn't the family get stuck in the time travel loop, but the ants did?
Maybe they did. They didn't realize. it.
Also, let's think
Ooh, I
back,
don't
right?
know.
So where did Janet go? So Janet fell into the quantum realm,
Yes.
and then she stayed there for how long?
30 years.
30 years. Now, if you remember, Ant-Man fell into the quantum realm at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That
right?
is correct.
Yep.
He stayed there for 5 years.
Correct.
And in those 5 years, never found any civilization.
No. He was on the upper level of the quantum realm.
On the roof. I
Yeah,
guess,
he was
of
on the
this-
roof
He's
of
on the
quantum
roof of the
realm.
building.
He was on the
Ba-
CG
Basically,
roof.
because he's like, I don't remember any of this. You didn't go deep
Right.
enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So he
he
didn't go
was
deep
just-
enough.
He was the big footsteps in the dark for all these other creatures. They're like, oh, what is that? Thum, thum,
But he was
thum.
gone for 5 years.
Correct.
And he said it felt like 5 hours.
Uh-huh.
So in this case, Janet was gone for 30 years. So that's what, 5, 10, 15, 20,
Well, no, but see, that's the
15
thing is
hours to her, but she aged 30 years while she was gone.
It's different levels, Ryan.
I guess so.
Different
okay.
levels of magic.
So maybe on this level of magic,
Yeah.
underneath the roof of the
You
quantum.
gotta get
Studio
in the
lot.
roof.
Yeah.
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 Anyways, yeah, like the time travel stuff with the ants and that all
It
that
always
stuff is
gets
very
questionable,
like
yeah.
questionable, and they not that they have to explain it. It's just a couple lines of dialogue here and there go a long way. Like with Kang's powers, again, he apparently has force powers where he can push people around, except
Hey,
for
just
later when he
lift
doesn't
people
want
up,
to.
Yeah, lift people up at will and move them around.
Again,
yeah.
he's Space Ghost.
Right. Yeah. So my biggest plot issue was just the conceit of Ant-Man beat up Kang. Therefore, in my mind, he's not a threat anymore.
Yeah, and that's been my complaint right
Yeah.
here is, and I already mentioned it, is we've seen him twice now, and we've seen him get killed twice.
Yeah.
It's like, so is the biggest threat about him is the fact that there's like, tens
There's
of thousands
there's
of
bunch
a
him?
of them.
lot of him.
So
Well,
we're just gonna
I
keep
don't-
seeing him over and over again.
Obviously, I don't think Kang the Conqueror is dead. I think he's shrunk down to
Even
another.
smaller.
Yeah, even smaller.
the,
he's
the
coming
quantum,
back.
Quantum,
To the darker, grittier quantum
Yeah,
realm.
he's in the
exactly.
mania of quantum.
There it is.
He's got the mania.
oh no, we could just go Bond. He's in the quantum of solace.
Oh no.
I feel like so like to
He's in a worse movie.
get out of there. Get out of there. I feel like while we're on plot, like the writing on a lot of the stuff, like again, the jokes were like here and there. Like the first time
they were
when,
up and down.
when Ant-Man starts splitting apart and then all of a sudden the Baskin Robbins version show up, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool.
That was
And then when he
funny.
shows up 2 or 3 more times, I was like, all right, this is played out. We've done it.
Yeah. We got it the first time.
We got
we
it.
got the one shot.
Let's move on, you know.
I did appreciate that Ant-Man became ants in that scene where
I
they
did,
built
yeah,
the tower.
I-
I
yeah.
like that
Yeah.
play.
Yeah, that I liked.
But they didn't just go over like, a whole body and then eat its carcass.
No.
Yet.
Yeah.
You don't know how.
That's
you don't know
Ant-Man
what was
4.
in
Wait
there.
for 4 Ant-Mans or whatever. 4-man ants.
Poor man, Ant.
So wait, are we in entertainment?
Not
now?
yet.
Okay.
The other plot thing I was gonna say with the writing is like the humor also with like Cassie and MODOK.
MODOK.
Where
MODOK,
she's like,
yeah.
it's never too late to
It
not
felt,
be a
it
dick.
Don't
felt
be a
I was
a
like,
dick.
little out of
that's
place.
stupid. Also, the the idea of she's like this person who's like, I'm fighting the cause. I shrunk down a cop car. But she has this whole like chip on her shoulder that you're not doing enough, Dad. This dude helped save the world.
Universe.
The universe.
Universe.
Thank you.
Yeah, universe.
He gets time off forever.
Well,
like, you know what I mean?
now, I would also say, because he has kind of the bits where he's like, this isn't our fight, because at the end of the day, right, when
Yeah.
we get into, Infinity War, like universe-ending stuff, right?
Right.
He's Ant-Man. He's not a big player. He's
Yeah.
not, he's not Thor. He's not a demigod or whatever else.
Yeah.
So I
He
felt
still
like
had a very key moment in
Yeah.
helping.
no, he
with-
did.
Yeah.
Oh, he
It's-
jumps in. Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I feel like there's an opportunity there to kind of bring in like the PTSD of it.
yeah.
Of like, well, why is he so hesitant to get involved? And it's like, dude, like I was there when like the buildings fell, like, you know, like when half of Manhattan died or you know,
Yeah.
whatever. Like,
Yeah.
because there are so many events in the Marvel universe where it's just like, well, you know, at least like for Tony Stark's character,
Mhm.
he had kind of what leads to Ultron or whatever. He has these fears,
Yeah.
but like I thought that they were kind of headed that way with Scott Lang.
Yeah.
And
where
they
it was
just
kind of,
didn't go
and
there.
it just didn't happen. Yeah.
Well, even if they could have like gone as far as like, I don't want to lose my daughter, or I've already lost
like
so
the
much
stake-
time
the
with her.
stakes
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
which they touched on that a little
A
bit.
little bit.
Again, that's the problem I think with that whole idea is that they touch on a lot of ideas a little bit. I wish they'd picked one and
and just,
really
just leaned on it.
because like what would you say is the emotional core of the film? It's like him and his daughter.
Him and
right?
his
Yes.
daughter. Yeah.
I don't feel like it was developed enough. I feel
Yeah.
like we should have. Not that I didn't like the Janet and Hank Pym stuff
Yeah.
while they were in it. It's just if you could have had a version of the movie where it's just Scott and his daughter, or Scott, the Evangeline Lilly, Hope, and his daughter Cassie
And, like
down
and,
there.
and just them and not
You get to
not
get
Janet.
into all that.
Well,
you
or
know?
even if you could have kept those two parties separate longer.
Yeah.
Right? So you have one independent quest and the other independent
Well,
quest.
it's like Cassie and the Quantum Rebels, you know,
Yeah.
and then like Scott and
Well, so
Hope.
the big thing with those kind of, I'll say, like story tropes is like, you know, whenever you are, you know, I'll say isolated from your normal environment and you're, you know, stuck in the wilderness and you're
Mhm.
trying to
Yeah.
like, you know, get to a certain point. It's like, well, we're just gonna walk this way because I think there's a big city over there, and then
Yeah.
like the time in between that's where you build your characters.
right.
And they tried to do that. It's
They
just
did.
they just didn't go far enough with it because there was so much other stuff that they were trying to cover
yeah.
Yeah.
and like add in to like a little bit of world building, but a lot of it was just kind of fluff.
But I
Yeah.
do think there was a missed opportunity to put a lot of emotional weight on that relationship and maybe into kind of, you know, like I'm just going back to like The Incredibles, right? Where you have like, well, I'm not strong enough. What do you mean you're not strong? I'm not strong enough. I could not survive if I lost you, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hit me with one of those or
Yeah.
something, right? You know, like I
Yeah.
already lost so much time. Like we've only had so much time together. What happens if that's all
Oh
we get?
man, I want to say things, but I can't because we're going to review it in the future. But Last of Us has a lot of that, and
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So maybe it's because I'm watching that side by side with
Yeah.
seeing this movie. But like, I feel like to your point, the idea that like Kang maybe shouldn't have been this Ant-Man movie. Like if you had a smaller Ant-Man movie that didn't have to deal with all the big
overarching
stuff,
stuff.
you
You
could
even
have
just-
gotten that more personal stuff. But they have to force in a lot of stuff with Kang, and then
to get
again,
the stories going, yeah.
Well, so the big thing
Yeah.
is with with Thanos
Mhm.
throughout the early parts of the MCU, you had all these smaller tier villains that were answering
Yeah.
to him,
Right.
and like he'd have a cameo at the end of a film, or you know he'd have like one cameo of like a screen where he's talking down to them or whatever.
and you have the speculation of, oh, what's Thanos gonna say this time? And then like when he finally had the fine, then I'll do it myself. Everyone was like, oh,
Yeah.
here we go. You
Yeah,
know?
and that's
yeah.
the thing is like you haven't really had all this buildup for Kang
Right.
because we've only seen him twice, and we've had what, like 6 movies in between.
We've had
there?
a lot of
Right,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And one of his appearances was just in a TV show, which is, I mean, I love Loki, but
This is his first appearance in a
film.
A film.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
feel like so. There's a character in the comics called the Scarlet Centurion who is Kang's son,
okay.
and it's
Is he a bad guy?
fuzzy on
Okay.
whether or not he's his actual son or
Right,
adopted,
right.
like
Yeah,
a Nebula, type
Mhm.
thing with Thanos.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was the perfect opportunity,
To have,
even though it's been rehashed and Marvel has done it. Is like you have that be the bad guy of this movie,
Yeah.
and him be
he's,
like-
he's answering to Kang
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
and then when he loses to Ant-Man, I don't have this thing in my head where I'm like, in the comics, every time the Avengers beat Kang, it's supposed to be this like, we barely did it.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, that
Well-
was
Yeah.
the biggest effort we ever had. And instead, Ant-Man's just like, I'm gonna punch him a lot and then shrink him.
Well,
Done,
especially
you know?
if you have the Scarlet Centurion.
Yeah,
That-
that was his name.
If you have that, where you have the nebulous relationship between him and Kang,
Mhm.
well, now Kang has a chip on his shoulder to come step in and be like,
yeah,
yo, who's this? Who's this big dude Ant-Man think he is? Like, who are you to do this to my son? And then I'm gonna come in
Yeah.
Guns
Yeah.
blazing.
Well,
And we need to move into entertainment. though.
Okay,
Sure,
Well,
yeah.
last thing I was gonna say about plot is we also never really get Kang's full motivation for
I don't think
what
you need
he's
that.
doing. But I could have done with like a nugget just because since this is the launching of Phase 5, I still don't know where we're gonna go next.
You didn't know what Thanos was going to do.
I did.
Well, yeah, because you read the
100%.
comics.
Well,
No.
no.
I knew as soon as they showed Thanos, I was like, he's going to be collecting the Infinity Stones. He's going to be
but
the
that's
big
the thing.
bad.
You had prior knowledge
You
True.
did.
to
Yeah.
it. That does not count and not fair to,
Now,
Okay.
now
to
I will
the-
say
Point
for,
made.
for
Yeah.
the motivation, like for Thanos, his motivation was get Infinity Stones. What he's going to do with that? If you don't have comic knowledge, you don't know.
Yeah.
Here, what is Kang's motivation? Get out of Quantum Realm. We had that. Like it was there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that's a problem at all. Just
I don't think that was an
because,
issue.
I guess it's less of a motivation within the movie and more of a
for the
overarching.
overreaching.
What
but-
are we doing
But
here?
they have time to build that.
yeah.
And
They
again,
do.
we have a bunch of different Kangs. They don't all necessarily have the same motivation.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like
So-
that's the thing. But yeah, I mean, like you can't go. It's not fair to the film when you go
Mhm.
into these expecting something that you already have prior knowledge of, and then it doesn't happen, and you're just like, well, I don't. Why would I not go? That
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to the people that made it because
No.
you have to look at it from the perspective of me. I don't read the comics. I don't know anything about this dude.
Right. Well, I haven't read Kang in the comics either. I'm just now
Yeah.
starting, and I still don't know in the comics. I haven't gotten far enough to figure. They're cagey there too.
I mean, that's the thing. They've gone through multiple volumes of comics. And you don't know what his motivation
still
is.
don't know.
There you go.
Yeah. See,
He's taken over the earth. Why? Reasons.
he wanted to.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday. So
But I still feel like before we get into entertainment, well, let's just go ahead and get entertainment.
make it. Call it entertainment.
Go for it. I was somewhat entertained, but not a lot. More of the time of this movie I spent just kind of like watching it, accepting it. It washed over me. A lot of the action didn't hit for me because of the shaky cam. A lot of the jokes, some were good, some were bad. So it was kind of uneven. And then the plot points were annoying me because Janet was being withholding with the information. The things happening in the quantum realm weren't weird enough to me to be like, wow, we're in the quantum realm. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Oh, we're just on like another
We
planet.
just are, yeah.
Yeah.
we just are. And then the barbarians, what was that one lady? See,
Rebellion.
the rebellion. I can't remember any of their names of the
Do they
characters.
even have names?
Because
they have
do.
names,
but
but
we
I
didn't get to
I didn't
know
really
them.
didn't really hear them.
Yeah.
I would have cared more about their rebellion if I had known who they are or got time with them to care enough to be like, yes, I can't wait to see Lamphead again.
I like
Well,
that
Lamphead's
dude.
dead now. So
He is now.
He is now. Yeah.
So for me, I have one thing that I liked and one thing that I didn't like.
Yeah.
So I really loved the centrifugal force Gatling guns. Whenever
Oh,
like
that-
on
like
the
the spinning
towers,
towers?
the
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
spin
those
and
were
the-
kinda
Oh,
cool.
they were so cool.
Yeah. Death
Yeah.
Star. Take notes.
Feels like that wouldn't really be efficient, but yes, I liked
Well,
how
it depends. I mean, it depends on the system, but possibly with an asterisk.
a huge asterisk.
The thing that I really had an issue with, so like the first Ant-Man film, and even the second one too, they get really funky and fun with what they can do with like the little like shooter things to make things smaller or bigger.
Yeah.
And they don't do that in this film at all.
They
They're just making themselves bigger or smaller, and they're not really fighting any like so like
Yeah, they didn't
in
do
the
anything.
first one, like he uses a truck as a skateboard, and
Yeah.
he like does some really fun and interesting things with like environmental kind of like I'll not say Jackie Chan, but like that's just the closest analog I can think
Yeah.
of using the environment to your advantage.
Right.
Well, they did a
just-
lot of that in the second one too,
Yeah.
with that downtown chase or
yeah,
whatever.
and it just didn't happen here. It was just
Yeah.
them just going smaller and bigger and just punching people.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it had plot points and like the way that Janet manipulated the size of the core.
Yeah,
So it had like plot relevance, but it didn't have kind of the asymmetric, the portal gun solution of like, oh, he's going to shoot down the building full of the people I like. Oh, I shrunk it.
yeah,
And now the bullet goes over him. And now I've made it back to its big size and it's right there.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, the door's closing and we need to stuff 60 people in here. Well, I shrunk him and we all slide under and now we're all big.
I was
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting for Cassie to come up with stuff that like Scott and Hope had not thought of. Or
Yeah,
something. Like 'cause
yeah.
she first time in a suit, and they're like she has a suit, and I wanted them to be like boom, and then she's figuring out like you're saying like really creative
yeah,
stuff.
like fun ways to fight, and they just didn't have it in this one. It just
Yeah.
felt much more generic.
Yeah.
This is just MCU.
Just punches.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, they shrunk and grew for punches, and that was it. And then even when they got like really big at the end, it's like I'm hugging Godzilla. You're the same size.
Yeah.
Like,
I
it's not like you're hugging Godzilla.
I
It's like
actually
you're
thought
hugging your daughter
that was
still.
pretty funny.
Okay.
Well, but there's also a question here, but
Yeah.
they're in a whole different universe, whatever you want to call it. They're in the quantum realm, so the rules are completely different. It's alien world, but like they're super, 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 super small, like smaller than an atom at
Yeah.
this point.
Mhm.
And like if they're this small, if you make yourself a slightly bigger, you're still way smaller than what you are as a normal human being.
Or,
Mhm.
So
or
then-
like, do you mess up and just like put your head through the roof?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm in the
Yeah.
other level of the quantum realm.
And that's getting more into like the
that's just-
nitty gritty science of it. But
Yeah.
again, they could have explained a little of that. There's a bunch of stuff they could add a couple throwaway lines that would have helped more some of that together. To
And
where
again, they had the
yeah.
characters with Hank and Janet there. Like they have
Yeah.
the people who should be able to explain them.
Here's your plot exposition characters.
yeah, like
they
this is like
exist.
plugging the holes for me.
Also, there was no Luis in this film. Which,
Yeah, he wasn't
Michael
in it.
Pena was fantastic in the first two. He was always really
we were
fun, so-
lacking some of those.
Yeah, there
return
were. I saw a
characters.
lot of complaints online about that, where we
Yeah.
had which one of the characters actually voiced the goo, the blob guy,
Yeah.
and I don't know which, but it's one of those actors who does those recurring
David
characters.
Dustmalch.
Sure.
yeah,
sure.
yeah. The guy that was the other dude.
Yeah.
So they had a little bit of that, but I did see a lot of complaints about. Of course, I had no
Yeah, you didn't have any tie for that.
pre-knowledge, so I didn't notice its lack.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So to me too, the other thing with just kind of like talking about the entertainment of, like not having some of those characters from the other one. I think a funner version of this movie would have been if, Hope, Scott, and Cassie go to the quantum realm, and then you have a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids style, like Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer, Hank and Janet are trying to find them in the quantum realm, and they don't go far enough, and they're doing like the literal, we can't step on them. Where are they? Like
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
have been a fun like
Like when they're
layer.
like over the ceiling, like looking in.
that could have been fun to play with the layers again of like
Yeah.
how far we're going down in the quantum.
And that's kind of the thing is like, like you said, Ryan, they hit a couple things. They just didn't go far enough
Mhm.
yeah,
into the weird area for it to actually be like a super entertaining film because
Which-
like, it's Ant-Man. It's already supposed to be kind of funky and weird.
Right,
Yeah.
which I feel like that's where the MCU succeeds is when they got away from
The
Iron
formula.
Man and Thor. Well, not just the formula, but when they got away from the characters who all the plot revolved around,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they could get into the original Guardians, right? Well, we can just be weird with it,
yeah,
and they got to have fun and they could push boundaries, and you just don't get that here,
hmm
yeah.
which it lacks for that.
It felt like they played it too safe. To
Yeah.
me.
It was definitely just kind of which it's not shocking, right? Phase 4 almost across the board got kind of beat up.
There were more misses than hits.
Right,
in Phase
yeah.
4, yeah.
So it's not shocking that they come out into, however Feige declares this to be phase 5,
Yeah.
that they come out kind of soft and safe, especially since this is, the launching point for Kang.
Yeah.
But I do wish, y'all talk about you're using the environment. I wish we'd had more of that. That would have been fun.
Mhm.
I felt like the comedy was very hit and miss.
Mhm.
Sometimes it hit and it worked.
And there were
other
some
times,
really funny bits.
Yeah, and other
Yeah.
times it either just missed or it felt really just out of place for like what's happening around them.
Yeah.
Which that's a tough. And typically the MCU does a good job of finding the right line to run where they cut tension without making it just overly silly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it felt like here, and a lot of it really revolved around MODOK and just his face. Honestly,
Sure. There's a lot of that. But I
they
think also with
missed there some.
like Jonathan Majors Kang and Paul Rudd's Scott, Ant-Man, Jonathan Majors is doing like work over here with this script.
He's carrying it on his
he's
back.
he's saying something, and then Paul Rudd's like got a quippy response to it. And
Yeah.
it's like that is what Ant-Man would say, but it feels weird in this moment. It feels like it broke the momentum of this scene to where if you had another serious actor
yeah.
doing like a serious
Yeah.
scene back and forth with him, it could have escalated, back and forth. Instead,
Yeah.
it felt like deflate the tension a little bit. It's like, no, this is Jonathan Majors. Let him do work. Let him keep building tension.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
did like the bit where like Ant-Man comes in, large into Kang City. He's just like, we had a deal, and like they kind of,
Where does our
and it's like,
bond?
man, you actually you really made him mad.
yeah.
Like I don't know how does this end poorly for you? I don't know, but I'm interested to find
It
out.
did end poorly
Yeah,
for
it
him,
did.
Yeah.
I did like them constantly quoting his own book back at him.
Yeah, those were some fun.
Be like,
that was
you
good,
did
yeah.
read my book.
Every something word of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My last thought on entertainment is I tend to like Ant-Man better when he's guesting in other movies than in his standalone
Well,
stuff.
because he's such a weird hero.
He is, yeah.
That like even like when you're with demigods and all this other kind of stuff, he's just a dude.
Yeah, but in those movies, he can somehow be like, oh, wait, Ant-Man's got it figured out. He's doing something, like, where in this, it's just like, it's just him, and it's, I don't know, it felt weird. It felt like if this had been an Avengers movie and there had been other people there, I don't know, maybe it could have been easier for him to be the comedic relief instead of the main hero that's also a comedic relief.
So this isn't Ant-Man or three-man Ant specific. But I am really looking forward to 3 Creed with Jonathan Majors.
Stop!
It's just
Y'all
wrong.
are killing me with
3
this.
Creed.
But
Threed. Why is it not called Threed?
But
No,
with
also stop.
with Jonathan Majors, I'm really looking forward to that film now.
Yeah.
Just because he did such a tour de force with this one. Like in
putting
Creed is going to
him-
be substantially more dramatic.
Putting him opposite Michael B. Jordan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of sounds like we are winding down. We're wrapping up about everything we have for this episode. Before we let you go, we got to get one last obligatory shill in there.
We do. So we have a Patreon, and what you can do is you can support us on Patreon for.
But Andrew, how does Patreon work?
Well, if you give us $1 a month.
Plug in your modem. Go to Hutep 2 whoa 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 period. Patreon. No,
That'd be a good soundbite.
that would.
That would be a good sound.
But yeah, if you give us $1 a month, one, that helps us support the show, and it keeps us lights running, servers up,
Pay those hosting fees.
all the hosting fees.
Keeps the gerbil running on the wheel that makes our lights go.
But what you do get is you get a guaranteed 1 bonus episode a month. That content is completely different than what we have on the show.
Yeah.
We have President Fight Club, where we basically look at presidential portraits and we say, can we beat this president?
Yes.
In a fist fight?
A lot of fun discussion.
It's actually a
Yes.
lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. We also have some other fun things like anime recommendations, soda tier lists, all sorts of fun, kind of stuff. And that's just for $1 a month, guaranteed once a month. It happens every month.
Guarantee.
6% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah,
Every time.
and if you don't have the money to, throw to us on Patreon, we would just love if you leave us a review on whatever podcast service you listen to, and just like and share our podcast. If you know somebody you think would enjoy this kind of stuff, text them about it. Send them a letter in the mail, Facebook Messenger, whatever it is the kids are doing these days.
Telegram.
Tell somebody you know about it.
Morse code. Yeah.
Yeah. Bring it up in a game of charades. No one will guess it, and then you can tell them why they're wrong.
Telestrations. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you are interested in supporting the show, that is patreon.com/spoilersintended podcast. We would love any support. We love all our current patrons. They have been helping us out for a while now.
Yeah.
We appreciate every one of you. But on that note, that is all the time we have for this episode. Until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Ryan.
And every spoiler was intended.
I picked a pop culture book because I thought that's what we were going with. When did we pivot back to regular
No, we're
books?
just regular bugs.
I missed that.
He's like trying to look up facts about bugs.
I was looking up. I picked Edgar from Men in Black. I had like trivia set. And y'all were like, this is going to be educational. I'm like, okay, I guess it will be. Whatever. I guess if people are interested in that kind of stuff, cool. I got this big picture of Vincent D'Onofrio over here on my tablet, and I'm like, hold on.